What is up, Pyromaniacs? Past Days is here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a pretty relatively new game. I believe it's been out in beta for a while, but for PC, the actual official launch, I believe, was the 13th of August, which was about 3 days ago. So it's brand spanking new, all things considered. I don't know if there was a beta wipe or an alpha wipe or anything along those lines, or if those characters and tunes are just kicking away, but this game is very much, I mean, it's called Eve Echoes. It's very similar to Eve Online for the most part. There are quite a few differences actually, but if you've played Eve for any length of time, you're going to feel right at home playing Eve Echoes. You're just going to have to make a few adjustments to how you play, and the graphics sadly don't quite hold up because it's not Eve's engine. This is NetEase's engine. They have a mobile engine, from what I read, that worked really well, and that saved CCP from having to, or I guess Pearl Abyss at this point, I'm not quite sure, saved them from having to create their own engine or port the other engine over. But for all intents and purposes, it holds up well. I mean, if you've played Eve, you're going to be fairly familiar with this. The only issue is it's going to be like you're playing on, your dad's PC a little bit. The graphics are still good, but, when you really zoom in and look at some of the things, you can see some of the particle effects are kind of hurting. The anti-aliasing's a little rough, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, if you're playing, most of that is only really noticeable if you're playing on a large tablet or a computer, like if you're using an emulator, so to speak. If you are playing on your phone, you're not really going to notice it. So there's that. But yeah, if you are playing on a bigger tablet, you are going to notice the graphical differences. There's also a lot of other differences in just like the user interface, for instance. If you've played Eve, some of it is kind of frustrating because you're like, know where you want to go, but getting there isn't always the easiest. They do have a skill queue, very similar to Eve Online. You can pull up your queue, you can move things around in the queue, although it works a little differently. So like for instance, right now I have a 54-hour skill training. It won't let me add something that is small enough to fit in before that. You'd have to clear the queue, add the small thing, and then put the big thing at the back. Eve, I think, now has a pretty much infinite skill queue, whereas Eve Echoes obviously doesn't. However, you are going to have all of your same weapon types: lasers, railguns, cannons, missiles, drones, and I'm assuming the decomposer might be a... Wow, I don't know what this is. I thought this might be a salvager, but this looks like it might literally just rip the ship out from under you. That sounds kind of cool. One of the other differences in the game is the way kind of ship power works. You still have... excuse me. You still have kind of your T1, T2, T3 sort of setup here, if you're familiar with it, but then it gets kind of murky as it goes further on. Not only that, but like, let's go over to weapons, if I can remember where all of that is. Sorry for all the coughing. It's not the Rona. I'm not contagious. Don't run away, please. Stay here. I got a seed in my throat. Hang on. There we go. Hopefully that cleared it. All right, so let's look at weapons. Like for instance, you'll have like the Sol civilian pulse laser, which we're all familiar with. But they're going to have the MK1, the MK3, and the MK5, and then the Imperial Navy. Imperial Navy is obviously going to be faction, and you've got all these different upgraded variants of the weapons. These different variants they work better than the prior ones. They just have different names. So it's going to be a little different than what you're used to. Not only that, but at the moment, the market is very small because it's very new. So people are still spreading out. People are still getting out there. Things like, I don't know where it caps out on ship-wise either. So if we go back over to ships, skills, and there we go. So at the moment, I think we got battleships. Yeah, it looks like battleships are the top end that we currently have, which is going to make things very interesting. And the reason I say that is there's a lot of space out in 0-0 that people are very used to using very used to using logistics to get to. I mean, you know, Tainol Branch, Cobalt Edge, these places are still here. You can still go to them, but I mean, how much is that going to suck without jump freighters and things along those lines? So I don't know. I don't know how they're going to sort that out. I mean, technically, you could live out here and be self-sustaining, but obviously, unlike. And I think, like I said, I think Eve probably already answers this question, but I think it will be more critical at this point to have crafters and a lot of crafters in your guild, in your corporation, keeping you rolling. Whereas in the current Eve situation, you can just schedule things to come in. You know, you can just place your buy orders, place your move orders, and things along those lines. Now, that's not to say that people aren't going to be hauling stuff out here, but you know, there's a big difference between, you know, doing 3 jump freighter jumps or 4 jump freighter jumps and getting a bunch of stuff moved out, and then doing, you know, an industrial run over 300 jumps. So it's definitely going to change the population of 0-0. I think the bulk people are going to at least initially be fighting over close, convenient areas, as opposed to some of the deep areas. But then again, you know, if you're willing to go deep and you're willing to work it, you know, get your stuff organized and set up out there, probably can make a hell of a lot of money if you can get it back in. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. One of the really nice things about it is they have encounters. Now, in encounters, there are a couple different types of missions. There are story missions, and then there are these news missions. Now, the story missions, you've got your 4 different factions that we're all used to, and these story missions you can pick up from the news here. So you can see, like, we've got an Amarian one here, an Amarian one there, and an Amarian one there. You pick these 3 up and you start unlocking some of these nodes. Now, I think you have to complete all of these before you get the storyline mission, which is a little different than the way it works in Eve. With Eve and missions, I believe if you do 10 or so normal missions, you'll get a storyline mission. This is a little different. But there's also a ton of other stuff here in the news missions. You can also, you know, set this up based on your rank. You'll notice that the missions are a little different than they are in Eve, because in Eve it's, you know, it's missions level 1 through 5. Here it's tiers 1 through 10, and I believe that tier system is focused around, let me see if I can find it again. It's under skills. It's focused under your tech level, and your tech level is basically your aggregate amount of skill points. The problem with basing it off of that is it's not a good judge of character power. So for instance, if I, you know, spec 100% in planetary interaction and industrial and et cetera, that will eventually open up tier 7, tier 8, tier 9, tier 10 missions for me, and I'm not going to be able to do them. So it's kind of interesting that they went with a flat tech level as opposed to setting up some other options. Now, one of the other things that's going to be a little different from Eve versus this setup is the way they do subscriptions, and this is a big change. I'm trying to find, there it is, the store. Okay, so let's go to pilot services, because the gift packs didn't really make sense. All right, so you have standard Omega. Now, the standard Omega clone gives you a benefit in skill points, and then you have the basic Omega clone, which gives you a benefit in skill points. Now, if you get the Duo, which is both the basic and the standard, you can get it for $14.99, which is a $2 savings, and that will give you, I believe it is plus 30 skill points per tick or per whatever, and you can see that down here. Now, on top of that, they have the cognitive chips. Now, these require the Aurum or whatever fee, etc. So you have Plex and Aurum again, which is kind of odd considering they got rid of that on Eve and just went with Plex, but we've got it back. This gives you an additional 15 skill points, but you can see the prices here scale up. Now these, unlike these, are permanent. So you'll want to pick these up on payday slowly. Probably these two. I think this one's like, well, let's go look at the Aurum prices. I'm sure there's a way to, probably into gift packs. How do you even see where to get the aura? See, I'm worried about clicking that button to get it because I'm worried it's going to, there it goes. Okay, so we found out how to get that. Let's go back to pilot services. So for this one's $825. $825 would put that at roughly a $30 value because you need 5, 6, 7. Actually, it'd be about $35 value. And of course, it's one of those really awkward ones that doesn't quite fit. Now, the 55 and 165, the 55 you can get for $5, and then the 165 you can get for less than 10. And then, of course, you'll have some left over. So if you then jump up and get this one, you'll save. You'd probably be better off going with this one here. The only issue that you're going to run into is, you know, you'd have to dump the remainder into skins, but the skins do look pretty decent. They do look pretty decent. So, well, some of them do, and then you got the Drake gas over here. It's like, I'm sorry, what happened? What happened here? We've got this pretty, and I'm okay, whatever. So some of the other cool things about it is like planetary production is based completely out of the station for the most part. You can kind of just flip through, find something that you want. You don't actually have to buy the equipment to drop on the planet, which is kind of an interesting change. But you can see right here that they do their thing. They run. You can boost the timers, and they'll continuously collect materials. Now, one of the differences between Eve and Eve Echoes is when you are producing ships, that you are going to actually have to use planetary resources for the beginning ships, whereas in Eve you don't necessarily have to do that. Another interesting benefit, at least it seems right now, is ore is pretty damn good for money making. Obviously it's boring as hell. You're sitting there just, you know, scratching your balls while it does its thing, but you are going to be making I mean, this is 574,000-esque, at least according to the estimated prices. Now, that's another thing you need to be very, very careful of right now with Eve Echoes is the market is insane. You've got a lot of people who are not familiar with Eve. They're maybe familiar with other games where undercutting is king, and prices are just completely ignored right now. This will balance out in the next coming weeks as people figure out, you know, oh shit, I've been selling this for 500% under cost. So like, for instance, we got Plagio class right here. Oh, and the ores are completely different, by the way. Forgot to mention that. Amber, there's a list of normal ores, and then there's rare ores, and then there's ultra rare ores. Some of those ores are going to have changed around a little bit. Like you can find ochre, I think it's dark ochre, and amber fairly easy in Empire, but you cannot find pyroclase. Pyroxes? Yeah, Pyroxes is low sec only. So the ores have been broken down into tiers. You'll have to go into low sec or 0-0 to get some of them. You have always kind of had to go into 0-0 to get some of them until recently with the anomaly changes and all that other stuff in Eve, and the moon mining and all that stuff. So I'm curious to see if we'll see any of that in Eve Echoes. Anyways, you want to click on view market details. Now the critical thing here is you can see everything everywhere. You know, you can check JITA prices here usually, or at least you could last night. You could see JITA prices from Tashmacon, which was kind of odd. But you can see these people are selling Plagio class for 7 a piece. Now, if we click on this and we click sell, this thing thinks it's worth 6 a piece. So this is a good thing. That means we're selling it more than the base cost, more or less, of what the game thinks it is. You have to be very careful with weapons and attachments, though, because sometimes the base cost right now will say 100. And then you'll have 45 items listed in the thousands or the tens of thousands. In normal EVE, if you see that, it's people scalping. People are still scalping here. They're just not smart enough to realize they're scalping, and some of them maybe. You'll want to go ahead and match more towards the top end price than the low end price. Now, if you want to match towards the low end price, you are more than welcome to. It just means you're going to be losing money. If you like losing money, that's okay, I guess. I'm not a big fan of losing money, so you do you, I'll do me, and we'll call it that way. All right, let's see. Let's look at the Amber. Amber is, ooh, that one's selling it a little bit better. Now you can see we've got some people that are selling Amber at quite low prices. You can make a shit ton of money right now running around and picking up all of these basic stuff and either turning it into something or, what do you call it, reselling it. The markets are incredibly fluid at the moment, so you want to be careful because, you know, let's say it's worth 190. What does Amber, the game, actually think Amber's worth? Okay, it thinks it's worth 12 a unit. So, whoops. 12 a unit right now for Amber. Had to do it the worst possible way possible. There we go. So the market thinks it's worth 12 a unit. With 12 a unit, you have a shit ton here that is like Azazai, way under. 9, 10, 11, 12. Now this guy, he's probably never going to sell these because he's an idiot. But we can probably sell it somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 or 15, and people will buy it. Now what I can do is, this is 4,100 Amber. I can buy all of this at 9 and then run out, pick it up, and bring it back here. You got to be careful, though, because as soon as I list something at 14, somebody may undercut me here, and the price may get dropped down into the teens again because people are stupid and don't know what's going on. So be careful playing with the market right now because it is fluctuating very easily. You can manipulate the market with less than 1 million creds right now, whereas in EVE it takes millions and billions sometimes to manipulate the market. So be careful. You can lose your shirt very quickly. Another thing that you can do, obviously, with these is reprocess them. If you're reprocessing them, you're definitely going to want to get some of the skills involved. As you can see, I don't at the moment, so reprocessing is going to be kind of painful. However, I can actually check the output of these individual skills that I'm going to get, and we can look at what the prices are for those. So for instance, tritanium, you know, we want to check the price on tritanium, you want to check the price on pyrite, etc., etc., etc. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I am very interested to see how the 0-0 groups are going to be doing the logistics, because at the moment, let's go to, and this is another thing that kind of sucks. It seems like the market hides some things from you if you don't have the ability to unlock them yet. But like industrial ships, these don't include haulers. So, well, okay, this one, the Amicus apparently is a transport ship, which hurts my soul considering it's a scanning ship. Delivery hold capacity is 5% per level. Oh my god. All right, how big is the hold? 8,500 M3? Wow. That blows my mind. This hurts my soul. So I'm not quite sure what the difference between a cargo hold capacity and a delivery hold capacity is. That's going to need to be looked into in a later video. That being said, it looks like these guys are going to be the basic transport ships. 8,500 M3 is not a lot of space, especially considering if we come to like mid slots and low slots, there isn't really any way that I found to upgrade your inventory. You know, you can't just slap on a bunch of cargo expanders because they don't exist. You can come up here and type cargo and hit search. Interesting thing here is there's also no cargo scanners. So I'm not sure if this stuff is either hidden because I haven't unlocked some of the stuff in the skills yet, or if it just doesn't exist. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how that all plays out. But I'm very excited about this. It's a lot more accessible than normal EVE is, but it also has a lot more restrictions than normal EVE. So the long run question here is going to be: is the accessibility going to outdo the some of the lack of depth, and are they going to be able to add in a lot of the extra features that EVE has into this mode? And things I'm really interested to see is like how are fleet battles going to work, etc., etc. So because anchoring and stuff like that is kind of difficult with this. So I'm curious to see it. I haven't been in a fleet yet, but I'm hoping being in a fleet removes your fleet from the overview, because the way it works right now, you can auto lock pretty much everything on screen, and it's going to be difficult in PvP situations. So I'm hoping that there simply has to be ways to mitigate some of that. So one of the other interesting changes is corporations are expensive as hell to make. 200 million ISK to make one by default, or if you're in Omega, you can mortgage, and if you mortgage, it's going to be 3 million right out the bat, and then you will owe them 220 million. That's a 20 million tax over the next 90 days. And if you do not pay this by the time that it's over, your corporation will be dissolved. So I don't know what I think about this. I've never really been a big fan of gatekeeping corporations and social stuff. But I do like this feature here. I just think this feature is going to bite some people in the ass, and I think they're gonna make themselves. There's gonna be a lot of tickets over this in 90 days. I guess that's what I'm saying. When people lose some really valuable shit or some really valuable corpse, at the same time, it is EVE. Harden the fuck up and learn to deal with it, right? So I'm going to be playing around with this over the next couple of weeks. We are going to be making a corporation. We'll be doing the mortgage method since we broke. And we'll see how it goes. The yawns are killing me. If there is something specific that you would like to learn about or me to do a video on, please leave it in the comment section down below and I'll add it there. We're currently hanging out in Tash. The population is very healthy. There's probably 50,000 people playing this right now on a Sunday, so it feels very, very full, just like EVE does. So I'm very, very much interested in seeing how this plays out over the next 6, 8, 10 months. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this game. If you have some questions, like I said, leave them in the comment section below. As always, if you like this video, slap that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next clip.